I've stopped growing old already. So stagnated. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I was supposed to be here last year to kind of animate the pastoral assembly, but in my absence, Monsignor James Nyanapragasam was here. Even Archbishop Emeritus Murphy Parkim wasn't able to come. So the whole experience of last year, I was just looking through the minutes that you have kind of put together. Quite extensive. There are 5 pages of group reporting. And we talked last year about BEC. If you remember, can you just for me to know, how many of you were present here last year at the parish pastoral assembly? Just a rough idea. Wow, kind of fairly good number. It's 60, 70% of you were here. So for those of you who were not here, let me just kind of, in a nutshell, just to recap, and hopefully we'll jog the memories of those who are present here. I'm not too sure how many of you remember. I asked somebody earlier, do you remember what happened last year? I myself can't remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago. I can't remember 1 year ago what happened. So let me just try to kind of, in a nutshell, put together what we did last year. Paul, next slide, please. So when we came last year, we embarked on this journey. I think Monsignor James talked a little bit about how in the year 1976, the church in Peninsular Malaysia took a basic option how we are going to build the church here. It was exactly 10 years after the conclusion of the Second Vatican Council. And in 76, the priests had gone away to Penang. Some of you remember, some of you nodding your heads. There was the priestless August. You remember the priestless August? All the priests went away and you all conquered and took over the church, did the services, did everything, and it was at that time that they got together and started praying, discerning, being animated by some friends. I'm too loud, I think that's why they kind of softened it a bit. Got the message, Ignatius. It said that, what are we doing? So how are we going to take this church forward? How are we going to take this? So they said that let's work on community building. That is going to be the core. That is going to be the crux, how we are going to slowly build our church. We are a very young church, We are a very young church, isn't it? Look at each other, we are all very young, But, we said, let's work at community building. And now, in the year 2016, it's going to be 40 years. 40 years since we chose the option to build Christ-centered communities or word-centered communities. 40 years. Those of you can remember when you were starting BEC, and I know SFX was one of the pioneers of community building, starting to build BECs with Father Peter Kim. Sounds like so long ago. 40 years we're going to celebrate. So we said to ourselves, when we reach 2016, we're not just going to come and cut a cake and say, oh yes, cut the ribbon, and we have a new bishop now, can cut bigger cake, stronger one, and say, 40 years, wow, 40 years celebrate. But we said last year, let's embark on this journey of revisiting the fundamental option that we chose. That is to build community. So we said, let's create this awareness. Let's go back to our communities. Let's go back to our parishes. Let's create this awareness of the importance of community building. And we embark on this journey to transform our BECs. So if you remember last year, next please, Pauline. Last year, there were these 3 key words you would see also in your notes. We talked about conversion, we talked about communion, and we talked about mission. These 3 things. And this is the kind of a reflection that we were going to lead our parishes in the Archdiocese. So let's just try to recall a little bit. So we said about conversion. We said fundamentally for 40 years, we are 38 years, so let me just put it as 40 years, easier to describe it. For 40 years, we have been working at our BECs, struggling, prodding along, And, whenever I go to any BEC, the first thing I ask them, how's the BEC? They give me a litany of their woes. Apart from your litany to Our Lady, to this, all that, now we have a litany of BEC woes. Father, this doesn't work. Father, this one cannot get together. Father, this one, nobody wants to cooperate, etc., etc. Have you heard that before? Have you your own litany also? So I've kind of concluded to say that, in our BECs, this kind of a renewal of prayer, people use mantras for prayer. You know what a mantra is? It's a word that you say. Some people say, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom, etc. Use. Now, in the BECs, we have got a mantra. Have you heard that mantra before? You haven't learned this mantra. Not yet. Okay, I will introduce you to this mantra. This is the mantra in our BECs. BECs don't work. BECs don't work. BECs don't work. No, we may not use those exact words, but we radiate those sentiments to our people around us. We may not be explicit. We may not be explicitly saying BECs don't work, but the body language, the facial expressions that people that I meet, seem to indicate that, we could be better. Isn't it? So last year I talked about, how BEC, people think that, when Jesus talks about, if you want to be a disciple of mine, you have to carry my cross. Many people equate the cross to BEC. That is to be carried. So it's a struggle. Don't you agree community building has been a struggle? Yeah, so loud and clear, isn't it? Yeah. It's been a struggle. For 40 years we have been trying. So what we hear things, when I, as a priest, when I go and say, oh, Father, these families, they don't come. We did a little kind of a survey. We did a survey 2 years ago in the Archdiocese, and we asked our BEC leaders, what is the biggest problem that you face in the BEC? Let me see whether SFX would be give me the same answer as all other BECs. What is the biggest problem you have in your BEC? Here's your mantra. Same people come. Same people come. People don't cooperate. What else? Old people only. So now we are developing a new litany for BEC in SFX. So you can add this to your novena on Saturdays. So this is what we are saying it. And yet some of us who are championing it, we want to believe it, but body language doesn't say it strong enough. So we said, hey, 40 years has been a long time. We need to relook at it. We need to relook at ourselves. Do BECs really don't work? Okay, you are the converted ones that are here. The unconverted ones are there saying something else, and they are the majority, isn't it? Isn't it? They are saying something else. So we said maybe we need to rethink about what can we use, how can we work in our BECs. Why aren't people lining up to get into our BECs? People are lining up to get out of our BECs, but not into our BECs, which is true. So we said we need to rethink. Which means that the rethinking begins with those who are there. Whether it is 5 people, whether it is 10 people, whether it's 8 people. How many come to your BEC? Let's just have a quick sampling. 14. 8. 12. This is like an auction, okay, right? 10. The backbenchers. Carol? 12. 15, all right, so don't talk about mass. Mass is an artificial setting at BEC. That is not the real BEC, When I was in the parish, I will go to a BEC gathering, and that's when I get the real pulse of the BEC. Those of you who are leaders, isn't it? When Father comes, everybody comes, so Father is the star to attract people, but on a regular basis, this is the number that we get. So this is what people seem to think that, hey, BECs, could be better. But let me just put it this way. Do you realize that, I think last year, Monsignor James also talked very quickly, in our Archdiocese, today, there are about 1,200 BECs in total. total. In all our parishes, 35 parishes together in the Archdiocese, you know. I don't have the figure exactly for SFX now. How many BCs do you have here? Be called chairperson? 17, 17, or 70, 17. So we're talking about 17 here, you know. But put together, there are 1,200 BECs. And I am just averaging this out, that 10 people attend one BEC on a regular basis. Let's not talk about Mass. Let's not talk about the Rosary months where you have more people coming. Let's not talk about Stations of the Cross. On a regular basis, I've averaged out about 10 people. If 10 people come on a regular basis, 1,200 BECs, you make the calculation. 12,000 people. Every month, 12,000 people come together to pray. The same Word of God, the same stories, the same prayers. 12,000 people meeting to pray. And the beauty of it all is that anybody forcing you to go? Is Father Alberto running after you with a stick or whatever, dangling a carrot before you? No. So the reality is that there are people who are praying together on a regular basis. And 12,000 is no small number. You know, I was kind of saying, how many of you were there at Archbishop's ordination? Oh, okay, yeah. You saw the crowds? I mean, people like ants all over trying to squeeze in, etc., 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 you know? So we were just talking and we kind of average it out as maybe 12, 13, 14,000 people that came together. And people were amazed by the crowds, which means that every month, we are having an episcopal ordination, 12,000 people. Only thing is you're not ordaining a bishop every month. Otherwise, you'll get your turn also. But it's just that we are meeting in different places. We are meeting in different places. 12,000 people praying. I said, there is no organization in the church that has got 12,000 members. St. Vincent de Paul, you have 12,000 in the Archdiocese. PIHDM, catechism teachers. So this is the largest organization that we have in the church. And we keep hearing it does not work. How is it that 12,000 people can be wrong? Okay, 1, 2 people wrong, I can understand. 12,000 people? So it works. It works. But we need to communicate it that it works. Not just verbally, but we need to communicate it also with our body language. So that's what we are saying. If we are revisiting this, let's now talk about what's happening. What's happening in our BECs. The good things. There are many good things that are happening. I'm sure if I gave you a sheet of paper, you can list down the number of things that the 5 people, that 15 people, that 12 people have been regularly doing it. So what happens is that people are not hearing these stories. What are people hearing? Nobody comes. No young people. Only retirees go to BEC who have nothing to do in the evening. It's a social club. This is what people are hearing and seeing. So we are saying, let's change that. Let's change. We need to motivate. We need to motivate ourselves. Does it really matter if you are old, like Father Albert just now, he says old, that you go to BEC? So we need to relook at ourselves and say, let's change. Let's change our mindset. Let's communicate this. If we want to grow as a community, and I see in your mission statement, the word community appears many a times. And that is our community at the base. That's the community at the base. That is our neighborhood. That is where we live in. That is where we spend, most part of our lives. In church, it's only a couple of hours a week. That is my base community. And that is where we are beginning. We need to find our sense of belonging. So we're saying, let's find ways. How are we going to grow? Next, please. Does all this ring a bell to those of you who were here last year? Kind of, isn't it? Just a little bell. So we said, let's look at ourselves and say, how can we grow? So we said, we need to grow in this spirit of communion. We need to grow in this spirituality of communion. So how many of you remember that there was a time in our church when we called ourselves BCC? You remember that? Yeah, some of you nodding your heads. BCC. And then we changed about 20 years ago. We changed to BEC. Do you know why we made the change? Yeah, I know. I mean, it's from Christian to ecclesial. So what is it? What does it mean? It's more Catholic. All right, okay. Anybody else? The priest told you to change it, so you changed. Thank you very much. You are being very honest. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't get you. The priest is involved in the BEC, okay? So, let me just say this. We changed from Christian, because when you say a basic Christian community, who belongs to this community? Only Christians. It's a Christian community. And we changed to ecclesial. Ecclesial simply means an assembly or the church, which means that now the BEC is not just open, the idea of community building is not just for Christians, but for everyone who lives in my neighborhood. So today, if I ask you, how many families do you have in your BEC? What would your answer be? Which means that everyone now is a member of my community. We may not pray the same. We may not go to the same parish. But everyone is a community, a member of my community. So let me put that question to you. How many families do you have in your BEC? Oh no. Yes. So that is what we are saying. Now we need to change our mindset to say that BEC is not an exclusive Catholic club. It's not like the singles club. It's not like a kind of a club. It is a community that is gathered in the neighborhood. Which means that the neighbor who may be a Muslim or a Taoist or a Buddhist or a Sikh or a Hindu is a member of my community. But we may not pray together. We may not come together monthly to do the reflection. But do we have that sense of awareness that everyone is part of my community? And I think that is the whole change of the idea from a Christian community to an ecclesial community. So we're saying now, like, let's look at ourselves and see, are we inclusive of everyone? Every person is a part of my community. Every person is a part of my community. That, how can we find ways to accommodate one another? How can we receive one another into my community? So I think one of the difficulties about community building is this, is that we find that, it's only that people who think alike want to come together. Whenever there's opposition, we kind of put people aside, isn't it? We kind of, birds of a feather flock together, isn't it? So only when you think alike, you don't oppose me, then you are my friend kind of thing. So we are saying this whole idea of communion, this whole idea of BEC, it needs a spirituality, because without a spirituality, then it is like any other organization of people, like-minded people. It's the same, no different. People who, no offense to any of these organizations, but people who go to Lions Club, or people go to Rotary Club, or whatever club, they have a common ideology, isn't it? So ours is not just an ideology, but it is a spirituality that drives us. And the spirituality that drives us is that, can we learn to accommodate different people in my community? So for example, some of the Greeks that go, but they say, Father, our young people don't come together. They don't come to our BEC gatherings. Can we have a separate BEC gathering for our young people? How do we learn to accommodate our differences in a community building? I think that is the challenge for community building. Can the young learn to accept the older ones? Can the older ones learn to accept the young ones in our communities? What happens most often in our BECs? When you go to a BEC gathering, the parents send the children upstairs. Isn't it? Go study or go do your homework. Don't come down until you're called. Or come join the fellowship only. So, how do we learn to adapt and accept one another? Is the spirituality that drives us. And I think this is what we are saying. This is how we need to grow. Thirdly, we talk about mission. We talk about mission is that our mission must lead us to grow out of our comfort zones. Do you realize that all of us, many of us, not all of us, many of us, we have kind of gone into a little comfort zone. We are quite comfortable with a certain way of doing things. We don't want to change. We don't want to rock the boat, isn't it? When I first went into the parish, and I kind of, as a young priest, you have a lot of new ideas, and then come to you, and then somebody will come to you, yeah, Father, we tried, doesn't work. And you try something else, no, this also we tried, doesn't work. Because we are all kind of set in a particular way of doing things. We all have a little comfort zone that we don't want to grow. Even in BEC, community building, we're kind of satisfied with the 10 people. We can socialize with one another. We can go for outings together. You and I think alike. There's no opposition. So we go into a little kind of a cocoon and we are quite happy. The Holy Father last year, I don't know whether Monsignor James showed you that slide. He said this, if church members, I'm just paraphrasing, I can't think the exact words, but he says, if church members stand in church grounds and speak only to active members, eventually it is a sterile community. What's sterile, isn't it? Cannot give life. It's dying. It's dying. And there's so much of truth in what he says. Do you realize that every Sunday you congregate with almost the same people after Mass? You could be across the other side. Somehow there's a little magnet that pulls you to your friend and to the same group of people you talk to. This is like your clique. So you will not allow any other people to enter it also. Somebody walks in, you kind of feel like the balance has shifted. So we have a little comfort group in church also. People who think like us. People who can be nice to us. People who, don't oppose us. So that's our comfort group. Do you also realize that you have a comfort zone in church? Every Sunday you sit almost the same place. Either 2 pews in front or 2 pews at the back, that's all. You could park your car in Jalan Gasing on the other side of the Shell Road, but you still come to the same area where you want to sit. Because if somebody sits there, your whole Sunday is spoiled, you cannot pray. Because that's your direct line with God, We have a comfort zone in church. True or not? By your laughter, I'm sure, it's very true. I just gave an example. When I was in the parish in Brickfields, and in random, probably sometimes I'll ask, hey, I didn't see you in church last Sunday. And they will ask me, Father, how do you know? KL, people come and go, so many masses, 3 masses on a Sunday, how do you know? I tell you a little secret. I said, this is what I call mind mapping. So I have zoned people in A1, A2, B1, B2. So when a Sunday, when I look up at 7 a.m. Mass, A1, somebody is missing. Now, who's that? Because people don't move. People don't move. So I tell them, if you don't want to be caught not going to Mass on a Sunday, move places every Sunday. That is, so you want to confuse Father Albert, move every Sunday, he'll never catch you. But this is of course it's an exaggeration, but do you realize that we all become comfortable in a certain way of doing things? we don't reach out. We don't find ways of moving out of our comfort zone. And that's very challenging for us. If the church is to be on mission, if the community is to be on mission, we need to move out of our comfort zone. And that's what the Holy Father is saying. Father is saying that if we don't, we become a sterile community, which means that we become a dead community. In 20, 30 years' time, you can have a large tombstone here. Here lies SFX. 19 what? When was it started? 1963 to 2020. That's all. That's a big tombstone here. You know, he says, we're going to die because we are not reaching out to people. We are not reaching out to people. Let me give you another example, you know. This is kind of a trend in some of our churches. I mean, I don't know whether you do it here, but, if you're doing it, I'm not just using it. This is an example. At the end of Mass, we ask, are there any newcomers for the very first time? Oops, all right, okay. We ask people, can you please stand? Isn't it? So do you also, welcome to the family? You don't do that. Kau sahabatku, kau saudaraku. No? So what happens? You give a little prayer card? A prayer card. All right. And you realize that after Mass, the newcomer stands alone again? So we said, welcome to the family. Kau sahabatku, kau saudaraku. After Mass, sahabatku, saudaraku all disappeared. My family gone back to their own groups, and I am a newcomer standing looking, hey, oh, that's a nice church, huh? We all left standing. I also see even people around them don't reach out and say, welcome to SFX. God I'm sure a few but generally, the few exceptions that do it, How many of us actually say, hey, welcome to SFX. Okay, you are the leaders, you are the converted, I need to speak to you. How many of us actually go up and say, hey, you are new to SFX, where are you from? Would you like to join me for a cup of coffee after Mass? Do you have coffee morning every Sunday here? Perfect. You are the right crowd to speak to. How many of us just go up and say, welcome, come join us for a cup of coffee? That person is left looking for his own or her own coffee. And the chances are they will not come because they feel out of place. They do not know anybody. Would they walk to your coffee morning? Probably not. So we are not a welcoming community. Let's give it. How many of you, you go to different churches, you go to St. Anne, you go to St. Anthony's, you go to St. Jude, wherever you go. How many of us go there and you feel really welcome? Do you really feel people come, the parishioners walk up to you and welcome you and ask you, where are you from? How are you feeling? A sense of connection with the people, the local people. How many of you have felt that in our Catholic churches? Let me be specific, which church? Generally, Catholic Church? Where? Canberra, all right, okay, that's quite far away, right? Let's, in the Archdiocese, generally, but as a priest, I hear these stories. I hear stories, Father, we went for a wedding in a Christian church. They were so welcoming. Have you heard this before? Have you experienced this? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? As a priest, it's very sad for me to hear that, It's very sad to hear that. Why is it that our communities are not moving out to reach to people who come to our communities? Whether it is in our BEC or whether it is in our parish community. Why? Why? Are we afraid? Is that what makes us Catholic? Not welcoming. So we get stuck with so many of these things, I was just reading an article a couple of weeks ago, and it's saying, not saying of Malaysia, it was saying of the United States, of North America, in fact. And there was a kind of a study done, and it was saying that for every one new Catholic that is baptized, 4 Catholics leave the church. For every one that is baptized at Easter, 4 people leave the Catholic Church. So we have never done a study in Malaysia because the people don't tell us when they leave the church. So every year we are quite happy when we go for rite of elect, we have 600 new people getting baptized. So let's use the same equation. If 600 people are coming into the Catholic Church, how many are leaving our Catholic Church? So you work the math. You know, just a new one I just read. In Brazil, one of the largest Catholic populations, in 1970, 90% were Catholics. Today, 60% are Catholics. So in a span of 40 years, they have lost 30% of the Catholic population. So what's wrong with us? Are we not reaching out? It's a lot. Though our churches are full, you add another mass in SFX, it'll be full again, But the reality is that there's a large population that don't feel that this is their community. Why? Why? So it's the same in the BEC. Why aren't people lining up to get into our communities? Maybe they don't feel welcome. Maybe they don't feel this is the place that I want to be in. So we need to ask ourselves, why not? Why not? That's the challenge. So I just use an example. I use an example of the early Christian community in Acts chapter 2, verse 42. If you remember, right at the end, it talks about how the community grew. What did the community do? They came together, they prayed, they broke bread, they shared everything in common, and the last sentence goes, oh, this is a Catholic crowd, so I shouldn't be asking about scripture verses. And he says, just kidding, and he says, the Lord added to their numbers day by day. Where's the preaching? Where's the door-to-door evangelization? Brother, have you been saved? Have you heard about Jesus Christ? How come the numbers are growing? It's just that they saw something wonderful in the community life. Hey, these people are different. They come together, they pray, they break bread, they share everything. It's very attractive, and they came. So maybe our communities are not attractive. Why? Why aren't we attractive? Why aren't people lining up to come to us? So this is what we're really looking at ourselves and saying, how can we, 12,000, we are a large number, and we can do something different. All it needs is, let's get off the chair. I'm being very polite. And reach out to people. And the community grows by itself. In fact, community building does not need any advertisement. You don't need to take an advertisement anywhere. Community building sells itself. If it is attractive, it sells itself. You look at the number of, you can bear witness to the fact that the number of people who, join BEC because a family member has passed away. Can you tell some stories? Yeah, you can tell so many stories. Why? Somebody reached out to them and they were touched. And maybe that is what we need to, not just in death, not just run after people because they're dying or they're dead. But more than that, we're saying, how can we find ways to build bridges with one another? How can we build our community? So this is what we have started, to relook at ourselves. Next slide, please. So we discussed this. You remember last year you discussed these two questions. You have 5 pages of answer. I just want to highlight a little bit. Some of us have said. So we are continuing the journey. So some of you said that we need to carry out. We reach out to people. We need to change ourselves. We need to have a sacrifice. We need to have Bible sharing. We need to organize BEC night together, etc., etc. How many of these things have taken place in this past year? Or have they remained in these sheets? So we ask ourselves, now let's, so from five sheets of answers, we need to do something. We cannot keep talking about BEC and not do anything. And next please. And we said, next one. So we said, okay, if we talked about conversion, how have we grown towards my community? You are the leaders, you are the converted. So my question is very simple. In this past year, do you feel a greater sense of belonging to your BEC? Which means that come BEC night, you, the leaders, you who are the apple, orange, pear of your parish priest's eyes, or whatever fruit that he likes, I don't know, durians I think, okay? You who are the pillars of SFX, are you excited on a Wednesday night to say, wow, BEC night, I have to go tonight? Or we say, ayo, BEC night, I have to go tonight. Which is it? Which is it? You are the leaders. You are the right hand, left hand, right eye, left leg, everything of your priest, you know. If you are not feeling the sense of belonging to your community, and you have to drag yourself to the BEC meeting, you know, and find every excuse not to go. Do you think that the people out there are going to run towards us? You are the leaders. You are the converted. You are the holy ones. Let's add on to that whatever you want to add. Huh? The halos or whatever, yeah. You think those out there are going to run to you? So we need to re-examine ourselves. Us. We are spending much of our energy worrying about the people who are not coming. A lot of energy is being spent. You know, and one of the things that the survey shows is that our leaders are tired. They are frustrated. Do you agree? We are tired. Why? We are tired because a lot of energy is being spent on worrying about those who are not coming. How to bring them in. What to do. What activities. Then when you organize activities, what is the answer that we get? The same old faces are coming back for the activities. Isn't it? So we are saying I think we need to change. We, ourselves. So we are saying, do you feel a greater sense of belonging to going to your BEC gathering? Are you communicating that in your non-verbal communication? You know, excited, oh, BEC night, yay, I'm going to meet all my friends, we're going to pray together. No, I'm exaggerating, no. Then you would think you're high in spirits when you're doing that. But, you know, that attitude of leaders, do we have that sense of, yes, you know? Because you can say BEC works, but if your body language says, I am not interested, which one most likely people will catch on to? Your body language. They will catch on to your body language. And that is what we are saying. Maybe we need to change. Wear different color clothes every time you go to BEC. So ask yourself, do you feel a greater sense of dedication to your community building? Next, please. So we are saying, you know, has this spirituality of communion growing within us? Can we leaders accept one another? Can we accept those who don't think like us? You know? And I think that is what should attract people, that everyone feels welcome, whether saint or sinner or whatever, that they feel welcomed in this community. You know? You know, the Holy Father was saying this year, already twice he has said it, in the context of community building. And he says, if you want to build community, there is something that you need to do. Did you read that? He said, stop gossiping. Exactly. He said, stop. Holy Father, straight to the point. No beating around the bush. He said, stop gossiping. You know, you hear a lot of people say, don't want to go for BC. Why? He said, Father, a lot of politics in BEC. Have you heard that word? Not UMNO, Pakatan, that kind of politics, you know. And what is that politics? Translate in regular language. Gossiping. People don't feel welcome. Yeah, people don't feel welcome. So do we have that spirituality of welcoming everyone? Different thinking, different way of, some may talk more than the others, some may talk less, some may be in some irregular situation they find themselves. Can they say, hey, they welcome me, I want to be part of this? And this is the only way a community is going to grow, if everyone starts feeling that they are welcome. How are we going to bring that about? Are we welcoming? Are we welcoming? So that's why I use the example in the parish, In the parish, we're not welcoming very much, We don't welcome newcomers in the way we are supposed to welcome, apart from giving the prayer card, and hopefully the person comes back for his rest of his life to pray in SFX. Because, hey, I got a prayer card, I'm going to go back to SFX every Sunday. Or to the BEC. So how are we going to be a welcoming community? How are you going to express that? And the next one we said is that mission. Okay, my time is almost up. What are we going to do? How are we going to reach out to people? When I use the word reach out, we are very good Catholics. Immediately, we think of who? The poor people. And the new poor is the migrants or the orang asli. We immediately kind of have this idea about, okay, where can we find some people that we can reach out to? But I think we also need, I'm not belittling that or saying anything about that, but what I'm saying is outreach is how can we reach out to people and to make them part of us? How can we, if the statistics say that every one baptized 4 people are leaving, how can we keep that 4? How can we make them feel that you are part of us? That you are part of us. How do we do that? And that is probably our mission. And that mission is not just restricted to Catholics. It's open to anyone who is in my neighborhood. How can we encourage that idea of that you are my brother, you are my sister? We may go different places to pray, but I accept you. I welcome you. Today in our country, there's a lot of suspicion amongst different religions. Don't you agree? Christians, if a Muslim walks into your church, immediately all our antennas go up, ding, 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 scanning and seeing who's following them, And it's the same the other way. We are all so divided and we're all so suspicious of one another. How can we learn to build bridges with other communities in our neighborhood? How can we do that? We always have, generalized statements we make. This community all like that. These Christians all out to evangelize and baptize people. People make sweeping statements and we fall into them. We use those kind of statements also, So we're saying, how can we learn to communicate, to network with people? I'm sure in your workplace, you have peoples of all different faiths, right? Hey, hello. No, you're working Catholics, you all work in SFX, or retired, okay, right. And what happens is that you and I can identify so many good people in the different religions, isn't it? Not everyone is a fundamentalist. Not everyone is a bigot. Not everyone is whatever you want to say. But so how can we learn to build community also as nation? And I think the church has a great responsibility in working towards this. And this is part of our mission. Community building is not just amongst Catholics, but it's about building community in our neighborhood, in the place we live in the place where we spend most of our times. So this is what we are saying. Next, please. So this is what we want to do. So what we started last year is that to see how we can go on, So we want to see how we can move forward. Next, please, Pauline. Yeah. So this is what we're going to do in this short time that we have for a little bit of discussion in your groups. You all see it in your groups. We're going to ask these questions. We talked about how a community has to move 3 stages. Last year, we talked about the stages of growth in community building. The level of fellowship. First level is fellowship. Second level is communion. And third level is we are out for mission. So where do you think we are? Which is our strongest point today in community building? Where are we? Which level are we in? Yeah, very good. Fellowship outing, pilgrimages, BC outing, all we are excellent in that. Okay, there's a time when we needed it to build friendship, but maybe it's time to move to the next level. After 40 years, we cannot be fellowshipping. We all, eating and outing, We need to move to the next level. Communion is about how can we be a welcoming community. And mission is about how can we reach out to people. So I want to ask you this few questions. You're seated in your groups. First part is that, do you feel a greater sense of belonging to your BEC? You, leaders, apple, pear, orange, of your parish priest's eyes. Do you wake up on one Wednesday morning? Which Wednesday is it here? First Wednesday. Your BC gatherings usually. First, okay, sure. You wake up on Wednesday morning. Wow, BC night. I'm so excited. I'm going to go for BC gathering. I'm going to meet. Do you feel that? If yes, tell us why. Tell us why. What motivates you? People need to hear. If no, tell us why. What's wrong? What can we change? We have to change. Second point is, have we becoming a more welcoming community? In our parish. Father Albert in his address was saying more people are coming into this church. New people. Is it what Albert? I heard that new people are coming to pray. They feel nice about the worship. Do they feel not just so nice about worship? Do they feel that they are welcomed into a community? They may feel nice about the worship with God. Do they feel nice about interacting with you? Do they come back to say, wow, SFX people are so nice. They welcome me. They brought me a cup of coffee. They offered me nasi lemak also after Mass. They're so nice. They were caring. They were not busybodies at all. They were sincerely caring for me. Can we say that? If yes, tell us why. If no, tell us why. What can we do? And third one is, in what ways has my BEC or can my BEC reach out to build this mission, to build this community in my neighborhood? What can we do? All I'm asking you to do is this. In your group discussion, talk as much as you want. At the end of it, just narrow down to 3 key areas. Just 3. Agree among yourselves. You can agree to disagree also. Just narrow it down that you think these are the 3 key things that is needed in the area of helping us have a better sense of belonging, helping us to becoming a welcoming community, helping us to reach out in mission. And then we will come to the point, then we become a missionary community. A community that is life-giving and not a community that is dying. I think we need to reflect on ourselves. Can we do that? Any questions about the questions? I think they're quite clear, isn't it? Okay, so this is how much time do we have? Till 4:15. 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes to do this. So what we'll do is that, if you can just kind of write down your answers. Yeah, you're going to explain to it. If you can just write down your answers on a sheet of paper, the 3 key points that you agree upon, finally. I ask this, that everyone, whoever's animating the group, is there a group animator already? Assigned already. The group animator, please allow everyone to speak. Just listen to one another. Just listen to one another. Share what your gut feeling is. Please don't give a sermon. If you do that, then Father Albert has got no work for the weekend. So let us please do something for the weekend and, so don't give a sermon, don't give a homily. Just share with us, what. And concrete things. Please don't tell me we all need to pray more. Of course we need to pray more, yes, that goes without saying. But give us concrete things that we can take up for the coming year as a common journey to become a welcoming and a missionary BEC and parish community. Can we do that? All right, okay, so I hand you back to Janet.
Okay. Okay, durance of... thank you, Father.